Yeah, maybe if I did this once every 3 months, okay? But no, I thought every time I went on a run, I deserved a little tartine and I deserved to sit there and eat it in Dolo. Mistakes.
Oh, wake up, rethink the status quo. When you get your money right, then you're the one who runs your life. Come build a wealthy spirit with Sammie and Michelle.
One thing I've been thinking a lot about, Sammie, as we think about moving from our small town to a bigger city somewhere on the East Coast, is lifestyle inflation, lifestyle creep. I'm scared.
They don't call it lifestyle creep for no reason. And let me tell you, it's been creeping on me. Here I am, working, making the good money. And I think to myself, oh my goodness, I'm going to move there to that place with fancy things and I might spend money. I might be into things that I wasn't into anymore. I might slip and fall and spend hundreds of thousands of dollars.
You know, when the nicest place you have to eat is a Sizzler's, and we haven't even been there, we have a different relationship now with nice things.
We really do. We went to Palm Springs this past weekend, and we went to a hole-in-the-wall sushi place. And I swear, you would have thought we were at Bacchanal in Las Vegas.
Which we do love.
We do love that. Because it was just so divine compared to the typical fast food that we're eating here.
One time we tried to buy fish from Smart and Final, and it was black. So keep in mind that we're not used...
It was on clearance. It was like
True.
Smart and Final, extra final.
But you know, Sammie, I think that thinking about lifestyle inflation or lifestyle creep, which is this idea that we slowly start to increase our spending on things as we increase our, oftentimes, income or the people that we surround ourselves with. Or in our case, we're increasing our cost of living just by moving from a small town to a bigger city. This is a perfect time to revisit lifestyle inflation, and hopefully thinking about it ahead of time will help us from going wild when we're in our new place. So I'm really excited to dive into it today, Sammie, because it's been top of mind for me, and I think for anybody who's going through a major change, maybe a new job, maybe you got a bonus coming in, a windfall of money, maybe you're moving as well. A lot of people are going through big changes right now, and it's fun to think about that sexy thing called lifestyle inflation.
Let's get into it. But first, a word on the Build a Wealthy Spirit newsletter. Every week, my dear sister Michelle works hard to put out a newsletter so that all of our listeners can know that a new episode is out. And she gives us an update on what's going on in the Build a Wealthy Spirit community.
Yeah, Sammie, I'm really excited about the newsletter because we originally intended it to be essentially a version of our show notes that people could subscribe to, but it's turned into so much more than that. I've been having a lot of fun writing a little piece reflecting on the topic that we're covering each week, sharing, of course, all of the references that we make, any shout outs for our community. If people are on Substack, I can specifically tag them, which is awesome. And people have been leaving us comments and following us. And I love that we're building our community there.
In fact, one of our listeners, Irina of the Boonley, said that she loves that we now have a Substack dedicated to our podcast.
Yes, thank you for that message, Irina. And we encourage all of you to check it out. We'll have a link in the show notes where you can sign up for the newsletter, buildawealthyspirit.com. You can get an update every time we have a new episode. You can read a summary on our thoughts of the episode, get specific details for the references that we make, and leave us comments. Let us know what you think. We've loved that we've been able to engage with people who listen to this podcast because they're able to leave comments, let us know what they think, ask questions based off of what they heard in the podcast episode. So check it out, buildawealthyspirit.com.
Now back to today's topic of lifestyle inflation or lifestyle creep.
'Cause I lifestyle creep and I'm creeping on the down low.
Love it. I can see a whole remix to that song about lifestyle creep that would be excellent.
Thank you.
Michelle and I found this excellent piece. It's actually an episode of one of my favorite podcasts, Life Kit, an NPR podcast. They have an episode called How to Avoid Lifestyle Creep. The host, Ruth Tam, brings on a guest, Paco de Leon, a financial planner, and they talk about lifestyle creep, what it is, how to avoid it, and some of the things that we all fall into as our lives change.
I thought it was really interesting, Sammie, to hear their conversation because they're talking about something that we're thinking about right now. How do we consider lifestyle inflation? I will say it does seem like we're a little bit more dedicated to avoiding it, but I'm glad that they highlight different traps of lifestyle inflation. And one thing they kick off the episode with is talking about housing, which once again, very relevant to us because we're planning to move from a place where we're getting a 3-bedroom home with a kitchen, a living area, a yard. We once had a radio tower. All of those delightful things will be 3x the cost in a bigger city.
It's exactly true, Michelle. And housing is so important because for most people, housing is the biggest cost.
And Sammie, I think that's point one of addressing lifestyle inflation is thinking very hard about the big, expensive ticket items like housing.
Exactly. When you do the big things right, it's okay if you fumble on some of the small things. And if you're not going to do the big things right, you need to be honest with yourself about it. Just like Michelle and I are being honest with ourselves about our housing preferences.
You would have thought that of all the things, housing would have been the thing that we would not feel inclined to increase our cost on. And actually, it was something that was causing us a lot of stress.
It was. You know, back in the day, I remember I paid $300 for an apartment in Knoxville with 2 other girls and a baby. And I had a great time. I didn't notice any problems. In fact, I didn't know any different. I'm like, this is a huge improvement from my parents. And these are certainly not the worst roommates I've ever had. These are great.
I don't know. Babies aren't really reliable rent payers.
But they're cute. Now, I can't even fathom having a single other person living with me.
Sam?
Sorry. Except Michelle. Outside of Michelle.
Literally right here.
And it's true. Our housing lifestyle has inflated. I hate to even admit it, but we do have to admit it. Not only has it inflated in that we don't want roommates, but when we're looking at places that we might be renting in our new city, we're looking at luxury apartments.
Keep in mind, the spectrum for luxury apartment is very large, especially for us, yes, where there are 0 luxury apartments in our city. In fact, I would say they are de-luxurious.
Some people might call our town an impoverished desert town.
LA times.
LA times.
Harsh, honestly, but not 100% inaccurate. However, that being said, yes, Sammie and I, we realized that we have to think about housing and admit that our lifestyle is creeping a little bit. And in fact, they talked a little bit about this on the How to Avoid Lifestyle Creep podcast, specifically how a lot of times when you're younger, or in our case, younger and living in San Francisco, it's totally normal to live with 3 or 4 people. And honestly, I wish I still could. It is so much cheaper to split rent among 4 or 5 people. You can get a nice apartment. You got 3 people living in there. You got 1 person on the couch. You got 5 people in 1 bathroom. I didn't even mind that when I was in San Francisco. I literally preferred a crowded home. Now, if it's not Sammie, I will pay the buku bucks to be alone.
I will hire someone to excavate the third roommate.
And that's something that we just have to be honest about. But that does open up a lot of options still.
And it's important to know what we want. For me, one of my biggest priorities right now is forming a good social life and exercise. So an apartment complex with community events and a gym actually helps tie in those activities to the place that I'm living, and it kind of doubles the use of the apartment complex. Versus a really, really nice place that's like a single family home wouldn't necessarily be something that I'd want to invest in because it's not having those additional things that I value.
Yeah, one time I dated somebody who worked on project management for apartment houses, and he was telling me all the little details, like where the plugs are and whether or not they have USB connection and all, like crown molding. And I was like, I didn't notice any of those things.
It's almost better not to know.
It's better not to know. Those are the good things about lifestyle inflation. If you don't notice it, your lifestyle will not inflate. However, you point out, Sammie, it's important to know what you want when it comes to things like housing. This is true for any big expense because the big expenses add up quickly.
Yes, you may be lifestyle creeping on housing as you get older, but the most important thing is just that you're honest with yourself about it so that you can choose things that you like without just inflating mindlessly and not acknowledging that you are increasing the cost of your biggest expense.
Exactly. And I will say, just because you acknowledge it doesn't mean you gotta go 100%, lean into it, throw the baby out with the bathwater. There are places that we have looked at that have the nicest tennis courts, a pickleball team, up to 10 floors, you're right on the ocean. The rooms, though, are smaller, and it's double the cost of everything else we're looking at. We actually get what we want. We don't have to bankrupt ourselves because we think we just have to have the nicest housing. We know what we're looking for. We know what's important to us. And that actually helps us find a range that we're comfortable with.
Other things we consider when thinking about the big expenses is transportation and food. That's usually number 2 and 3 in people's spending.
It's true, Sammie. I don't even drive my car that much that I bought when I first moved to Austin. And I love having a car. It's amazing. And it's not crazy expensive. It's like a Toyota. Though, it is the same Toyota as the one in the new Barbie movie. So I just want to say I'm pretty trendy. Yes, it's a mom car, but it's also a getaway car. I digress. Point is, my car for the past couple of years, even though we've decreased our expenses and everything else, it has still floated up as the number 1 expense I have every single year. I have to pay for registration. I just had to get a new battery. I haven't even fixed the scratch on my car. But if I wanted to, that would be another $1,000 I would have to pay for it. So keep in mind that something like a car, maybe you need fancy gas. Maybe it's expensive to maintain the interior.
Maybe a fancy car is your lifestyle creep thing that you want to invest in, and you're living in a shack.
Yeah, you live in not a great house, but you got the Tesla. More power to you. And food is definitely another one, Sammie. Especially for us. I think that's the one where living in a small town has been a really amazing way to reset our expectations with food.
Mm-hmm.
We appreciate cooking, and 2, having no options has made us appreciate the other things. Like you said, sushi, we love sushi. I used to literally eat it all the time when I was in San Francisco. I was basically a salmon. But at this point, it's a treat for us, and I like it. I feel like every time I eat it, it feels like the most deluxe meal of my life.
I think what you're suggesting here, Michelle, is the hedonic treadmill, which Ruth and Paco talk about on the How to Avoid Lifestyle Creep episode. The hedonic treadmill refers to this concept that as we inflate our lifestyles, we get used to these new fancy things that we bring in, and our happiness, which may initially increase when those things are introduced, eventually reverts back to our typical mean. And that's another reason to be careful about what we bring in.
I agree, Sammie. We love treating ourselves to a buy one, get one deal at McDonald's today. And I hope I have the same enthusiasm for sushi that I still do today, a year from now. But the truth is that we probably will also get used to our new housing, our new city. Luckily, our baseline happiness is pretty good. And I think it's helpful to think of the hedonic treadmill because it's not like you have to throw all of this money to your housing, your car, this energy of I need this new thing in my life. Chances are you're just going to be pretty happy with it, relatively satisfied in the next few months anyway.
When it comes to lifestyle creep, I think it's really important to think about what our own priorities are. As Paula Pant says, you can afford anything but not everything. And if we're not careful, we're going to be buying the things that our neighbors want and not the things that we want.
It's so true, Sammie. And oftentimes I wonder, what is the difference between something like lifestyle inflation where you're slowly spending more money on the cost of goods around you versus your rich life that Ramit Sethi talks about. Ramit Sethi always talks about how you should invest money into the things that you really care about. But how is that different than investing more money in, say, a nicer apartment?
It's true, Michelle. And I think it's all about priorities. Or you can even use Charlie Gilkey's framework of your projects. For example, my 4 projects are self-care, exercise, creating community, and our podcast. Those are my 4 projects when I start my sabbatical. Spending money outside of these 4 things is really going to be me just moving in the wrong direction.
I think that's a great framework, Sammie. And I think you have to be careful. Self-care, for example, can quickly add up if you're justifying getting a massage every day, getting your hair washed every day, getting your nails done, having somebody follow you around and compliment you. I don't know.
You're exactly right, Michelle. And that's why it's really important to think about these things beforehand, ideally. Whenever you're putting a project on your list, every quarter, maybe reevaluate this. For me, I think about the self-care project, and it's really self-care basics. Exfoliating in the shower, lotioning so I smell like a cookie, using my pumice stone on my heels, using my electric toothbrush and water pick, and not just letting them collect dust, shaving and bleaching all my hairs, just like baseline feeling clean and neat and polished, but not necessarily buying fancy clothes or dyeing my hair ombre.
Oh gosh, dyeing your hair is lifestyle creep to the max. Not just because it costs a lot to do it, but if it's something you don't value, keep in mind it is expensive to maintain.
It is. It's like buying a dog. You gotta condition your hair more. You got a whole other routine just to deal with the dyeing of the hair.
You have to get it done multiple times. It's like hundreds of dollars. Every time I go to get my hair done somewhere nice, they're like, oh, you should dye your hair. And I'm like, okay, yeah, that's because you don't want to just cut my hair for like $60. You also want me to sit in your salon chair. You paint my hair. I got to come back in. I got to get it toned. I got to get it dyed. All of a sudden now it's dry, so I need the special shampoo. Again, I love my hair, so I'm okay with not dyeing it.
Exactly, Michelle. Which is why you have to get clear about what's important to you beforehand. Otherwise, you're going to go to the store and be like, this is self-care. This is self-care. It's okay for me to spend on this because I'm about self-care right now. No. Think about what that means to you before you start spending on it.
Exactly, Sammie. And I think knowing your projects, or really your priorities, really helps you figure out what you want to invest your money into. For example, I know that really in the next year, a lot of things that I'm focused on are my writing, launching my own small ads. A lot of it's like working from home. It's less about even learning and more about the action and doing. So I want to invest money in improving those skills. But a lot of those things actually don't require money. They just require me to put more time and energy in them and have a schedule together. So that's great to know because that's a priority for me.
And you bring up something great here, Michelle, which is just because we're working on these projects doesn't necessarily mean we have to spend money on all of them. We can start with the lowest cost way of doing everything. Like for my exercise, I'm probably going to start with running and using the gym at the apartment complex. Yeah, maybe I'll want to bring on ClassPass and hot yoga and spinning. But to start off, for someone who has not been doing much exercise, stretching, running, using weight machines, these are the perfect things for me.
I think investing slowly is so smart because it also gives you a chance to test it out and see what you want to do instead of going full into the 1-year subscription to Equinox level gym. And maybe that's what you want, but you don't have to jump right to it. I remember when I got into yoga, I started doing it for free at my office. I wanted a nice yoga mat, but I hadn't done it many times. So I bought like a $9 one that I got at TJ Maxx across the street. I was like digging holes into it with like my sharp toenails because it wasn't a very strong material. But after doing it for a year, I decided to invest in more of like a $100 mat. One that I still use today. I love it. It has really great grip, but at that point, I knew I liked yoga and I wanted to keep doing it. And I wasn't afraid to make the investment at that point. I was also working full time.
This reminds me of a great Charlie Gilkey topic that you told me about from Start Finishing, which is the good, medium, and great. And all my type A's don't think that you want to be great in everything. No, there are things that you want to be good in. For example, my self-care and even my exercise. I'm just trying to be good. I'm not trying to be an Olympic athlete. I'm not trying to hire a personal trainer or anything yet. Maybe I'll do that after some time. But for right now, I'm just trying to be good.
I really like this framework, Sammie, of deciding ahead of time, like, am I trying to be good at this? Am I trying to be, medium level? Am I trying to be great? Because the point that Gilkey makes is that the difference between good, medium, and great is more investment of time, more investment of energy, and more investment of money. And once again, you can easily lifestyle inflate if every single hobby is getting a great level investment of money, but that's actually not what you can spend your time on. That's actually not your priorities. I think a great example of this is we both are dabbling in relearning how to play the piano. And we did invest in a keyboard, but we're not trying to perform at concerts. We're not trying to become the child prodigies that we never were because we didn't practice when we were younger. Honestly, I think both of us just want to be able to play a couple of good songs and
have 81 keys.
And have 81 keys, yes. A mistake we made in the past. And the truth is, that means that we don't need a Yamaha piano. We can settle for a keyboard. We don't need to pay for lessons. Like, we're not that dedicated to it. And we don't need these, like, fancy spiral-bound books. Like, we're happy to just buy the songs that we want to learn. And it's a thing that we enjoy, but it's just not a priority. So it doesn't make sense for us to invest more money into it because honestly, we're not going to invest more time or energy into it either.
Now, listeners, one of the most important things about lifestyle creep is to beware of the lifestyle creep traps.
Oh, yeah.
These traps are scary. They're scarier than the devil presenting himself. In fact, they probably brought by the devil. And these creep traps, they mess you up. They are things that you didn't even think that you needed that pop into your life.
Exactly. And to clarify, they're not scary at all. In fact, they're very divine. They're very tasty. I love in the podcast, they reference it as treat yourself opportunities. And ooh, I do know so well how a treat yourself thing, like a coffee at Blue Bottle right after you get off the train, it's $5. Then next thing you know, you're getting the chocolate croissant.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, every single day, you're dropping a lot of cash, even though you get free coffee in your office. Because you thought, let me treat myself.
It's true, Michelle. It reminds me of when, in San Francisco, when we lived there, I would go on a run. I would go down to the Mission, and there was this lovely bakery, Tartine.
Oh.
And they would have the most delicious desserts, which that's honestly the bigger problem. I did not need to be eating dessert. I get me a dessert. I go over to Dolo Park and I'd eat it. And yeah, maybe if I did this once every 3 months, okay? But no, I thought every time I went on a run, I deserved a little tartine and I deserved to sit there and eat it in Dolo. Mistakes.
It's funny because I think in those moments, I've had the same issues. Oh, let me get a cookie on my walk home. It's actually the sugar that first triggered the recognition in me that I was doing the wrong thing. We love to avoid sugar here. We have diabetes up and down our family. So yes, of course, we love a treat yourself cookie. We love a treat yourself honey bun from Tartine. And maybe the first time you run, it's a nice reward.
Mm-hmm.
Once you get in the habit of running, maybe get yourself a Fitbit instead.
It's really funny how the things that increase your waistline decrease your wallet. There's like an inverse relationship between those two. Unless you're going to McDonald's. But, I remember even when we were little, the first time we got that Charmin Ultra toilet paper. And I'm not saying that we were buying one ply or anything at home. We were buying normal toilet paper. But once we started getting the Charmin and the Quilted Northern, I remember we go to the store and I'm like, please do not buy the other toilet paper. And this, mind you, this is something I'm using to wipe my butt. Like, it does not need to be that nice, but like once you get used to it, it's hard to go back.
You know, you're right, Sammie. When I was in college, I remember we used to find toilet paper in the library.
If you
And it was
stole
one ply.
toilet paper from somebody's house in college so that you didn't have to use a one ply, you know what we're talking about.
I mean, we used to take it from the library and it would be often locked up because,
No,
you know, honestly,
Toilet paper in college is always locked up. And you know why now.
because of people like me. Anyway, the point is that now we buy Charmin, but we get it from Costco. But I honestly can't think about going back. And that's lifestyle creep.
Creeped up your butt.
And I think that's the most important thing about lifestyle creep is just be honest with yourself. Like, what are the things that you really do enjoy, value, are a priority? And where are you deluding yourself?
Do not delude yourself. I always hear people deluding themselves. They're like, oh, I just like to have my nails done because it makes me feel good. Okay, yes, but that is lifestyle creep. You do spend extra money that does not need to be spent on that. And I am not saying there's anything wrong with that, but don't be delusional. It reminds me of when I got my laundry service. I thought I didn't have time for laundry, so I needed this laundry service to pick up and bring back my laundry. Well, to be honest, it wasn't really saving a lot of time, okay, because I still had to fold my clothes. I still had to get it ready for them to pick up. I still had to make sure that I came home so I could pick it up. And I was really deluding myself on this whole situation.
Exactly, Sammie. And I think, you know what, maybe you try it out. And it's okay to be like, okay, I thought I needed a laundry service. It turns out I don't. I thought I needed a stylist. And it turns out I didn't.
Exactly. Admit that you're making a splurge purchase, which is above your needs, but you enjoy doing that because you value that. I think saying that whole narrative to yourself, I'm spending extra money on this because I value this, makes you actually think, do I actually value this? Because otherwise, if you're just like, oh, I need to do this, it's easy to just convince yourself that you're right and rationalize your decision.
That's so true, Sammie. Because when I say something like, oh, I'm investing in this writing course because I value this skill, that feels true to me. When I say, oh, I'm investing in this cookie because I walked 5 minutes from the train station, doesn't ring true the same way.
Takeaways.
Takeaways for this episode. Number 1, and one of the most important ones, is think very hard about the big things. If you can avoid lifestyle inflation on the big things, you might not even have to worry about the small things so much.
If you're willing to live with 5 other people in a home outside the city, go ahead and get your hair done every week. Not necessarily, but the point is that if you can cut costs on housing, transportation, food, that makes such a bigger impact than getting coffee every single day.
And each one of us has different levers. Like if you're an extrovert, even though you're middle-aged, you might like living with other people. And that's a huge hack for you.
That's true.
For me, I don't mind having a not fancy car. In fact, I love not having a fancy car.
You know she does.
I take pride in it. And that's an advantage for me. We all have our little areas where we can not spend a lot of money. And then we have areas where it's really important to us to have something that we like. Picking those things out will help us enjoy our lives, but also be able to save for the future.
Exactly, Sammie. And outside of the big things, think also about your projects and your upcoming priorities. In the next few months, what are the things that you are going to be spending more of your time on? What are the things that you are prioritizing in your life? I think that really helps to think ahead of time about where you want to invest your money. For example, writing for me, self-care for Sammie. But it also helps you avoid just consumerism when you're Googling keyboards and you see that you can get actually a really fancy piano that wouldn't even fit in your apartment in the first place.
Exactly. Don't forget that America's best and brightest, no, the world's best and brightest are working at companies where they get paid well to what? Help you buy stuff.
Ooh.
And so if you don't plan ahead to decide what are your projects and what are your priorities, they will convince you need a lot of shit that you don't need.
It's so true, Sammie. Every time I log on to Instagram, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that there was a new type of pant or dress to buy.
Mm-hmm.
It's crazy.
It's actually crazy.
These targeted ads are very good. And that's always one of my biggest tests is, did I want this 10 years ago? Did I want this 5 years ago? Did I want this 10 minutes ago? Because if not, chances are marketing or one of the Jonas Brothers convinced me that I wanted it. And that's the real lifestyle creep and lifestyle inflation. It's less about the fact that we're spending more money on things. It's about the fact that we're starting to spend more money on things because we're not being intentional and we're letting external influences tell us what we want.
Community time!
Before we say goodbye, it's our community time.
This week in our community time, we want to give a huge shout out to Irina, who recommended our podcasted episode, The Art of Planning a Sabbatical, in the Bloomly.
Yes, it was so nice of her to recommend our podcast episode, and I love following her newsletter, so it's such a delight to see it. And I love what she even highlighted. She specifically said, taking a sabbatical can feel like a big leap into the unknown. It means saying goodbye to the financial security and status that comes with corporate life. But what if you know that you're ready for change? What if there are even more exciting opportunities waiting for you out there? The episode of Build a Wealthy Spirit is all about planning your sabbatical. And, we love sabbaticals here. So to have that episode highlighted is such an honor and obviously one of our favorites.
Carla said that our episode, Redefine Success to Recreate Your Life, spoke life into her. And she shared it with a friend as well.
Wow. You know what? Thank you, Carla. And anybody listening, if you share this podcast with a friend, let us know. 1, we'd love to give you a shout out. And 2, that's honestly one of the best things you can do to support us. Because when it comes to podcasts, the best compliment you can give us is to let us know that you thought it was worth someone else's time and energy to listen to. And Abby sent me the nicest text about how she loved 2 of our episodes, the 5 people you surround yourself with, and how to do more by doing less. And she said with the 5 people you surround yourself with, she actually did the exercise where she looked at who she was spending time with and how much time she spent with them. And it really aligned with what she wanted. She sent me a little photo too. And when it comes to how to do more by doing less, she said she's going to focus on saying no to more things to make sure 1, she's scheduling some time for rest, and 2, making sure her time is aligned with her goals. I think she's our listener that always goes above and beyond to take action when she hears an episode. And that's so awesome because I feel like if we inspire action, that really is so tied in with our intention here at Build a Wealthy Spirit, which is more than just sharing stuff that we learn, but hoping that we can inspire something new and inspire change.
She really takes it from being an A student to being an A+ student.
Oh, amen.
Michael commented on our Substack.
That's right, buildawealthyspirit.com.
That he loved our episode on the 5 people you surround yourself with. And he was also interested in the wedge pillow that Erica had recommended to me after my thyroid surgery. This wedge pillow, which is unfortunately not affiliated with the podcast in any way.
We really need to get our Amazon affiliate links going.
We really do. This wedge pillow is amazing. If you have heartburn, if you have chronic sinus problems, if you have sleep apnea, again, this is not my medical opinion, but this pillow will help.
It's actually become our napping pillow now. Like every time I take a nap on the couch, I'm just like on that pillow and I fall asleep immediately.
It's crazy how many uses this pillow has. I mean, it's just like if you don't have a wedge pillow in your life, you need it.
Yes. And Michael, we did share the link with you on our Substack. So if you do hear something that we mentioned and it's not referenced in our show notes, feel free to leave us a question. We're happy to get back to you and share the links. And so, as a reminder, buildawealthyspirit.com, sign up for our newsletter. We love to hear from you. It's so great because we love talking about these topics. We love chatting with each other. But honestly, it's when we hear from the community, when we're all sharing our ideas, sharing the projects that we're working on, sharing how we're applying these lessons, it makes it so that we're building a wealthy spirit together. And that's the most meaningful part to us. So let us know what you think about this episode. buildawealthyspirit.com.
And most importantly, be sure to join us next time as we put down the rule book and we rethink the status quo.